Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, depending on wherever you are joining us from. We are so glad to have you join us for today's SEDAT HR Digest, which is proudly brought to you by SEDAT Consult, your trusted HR partner. Our services at SEDAT Consult include recruitment, training, staff outsourcing, and HR consulting. So kindly reach out to us for any of our services. Thank you so much. I am your host for today's episode, and my name is Evelyn Iradra Jumbo. Kindly drop in your name and wherever you're watching us from in the comment section, and we'll be gladly to acknowledge your presence in due time. Thank you so much. We are so happy to have you join us today. Today's topic, it says leading change management initiatives. Well, change is something we all face, right? Sometimes it's exciting, sometimes it's so uncomfortable. But they say the only people that like change are the babies in wet diapers. But don't worry, we have our guest speaker who is the person of Pastor Sana Brobe, Samuel Sana Brobe, to have this discussion with us. I'm sure we'll have a very interesting conversation on how to lead change, on what to do as a leader. He has the expertise, his wise, and all that he has for us today. So kindly stay tuned. Let us know you are joining from, your name, your location, and I'll be sure to acknowledge your presence. Thank you so much. So I would dive in straight into our topic for the day. I officially welcome you, Pastor Brobe, to the conversation. Please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Evelyn. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you to all who have joined us in this conversation. I believe we are going to have a very fruitful discussion on the subject of leading change management initiatives. As
Yeah.
professionals in our various institutions and organizations, it's important to have a very high discourse on this subject matter because there's so much going on within the country as a nation and then within our individual organizations. And I want to take the time to have this discussion. If you can see my slide, we are talking on leading change management initiatives. And then this afternoon, I want to start with this discussion, sharing with you what change management is, why lead change well, the stages of change journey, the key factors for success, and I will share with you some ways to handle resistance that comes naturally with change management. Then some nice steps for making change happen. Then we wrap up. So just bear with me with some few time to start with this discussion. However, I want to believe that whilst we go through this, whatever question you have, you can share with us. And then when time is up, we'll leave the floor open for some kind of discussion. I want to help with answering the question, what is change management? And the concept of change has come to stay because change is inevitable. Friends, it is important that we accept these kind of initiatives and then offer ourselves to go through it. Some scholars have come up with some ideas that speak to the concept of change management. Uh, a scholar of his own repute, Jonathan Haidt, who is a social psychologist at the New York University, in 2006 wrote a book labeled as The Happiness Hypothesis. And in his book, he introduced what he calls the rider and the elephant analogy. If you can see what is on the slide, you can identify a very tiny person sitting on an elephant. The concept of the rider and an elephant analogy was further uh, revised and then made better by Chip Heat and his brother Dan Heat, who in 2010 in their also book they wrote labeled as How to Change Things When Change is Hard. These scholars in their own understanding makes us get the concept of change as that change is about planning and carrying out changes in the company to help it grow. I must say that if we are looking at the goal of change, the main goal is that to guide behavior by focusing on what we do as a person, the feelings, and even the surroundings that we have. So the clear thinking that we have, the feelings of it. These are the analogies that was made by Chapman by saying that if we consider the rider, we can say the rider becomes the rational mind. The rider on top of this elephant will just take the reins of the guiding reins of the elephant and wants to lead the elephant on the path. However, using the rational mind, this strategic planning and then the analysis that the rider wants to take up, the elephant becomes that emotional core. The emotional core bringing to the understanding that there is some kind of motivation, there is some kind of fear, there is some kind of habit that resists the direction that the rational mind wants to take. However, there is a part on which this analogy explains that we need to also appreciate, and that becomes the systems, the cultures, and the policies. To bring it down within our scope of management, I want to share that in an example of rolling out a policy, we can see this change management coming out clearly when employees understand that there's a new policy that has to be implemented. However, even though they get the concept of the policy, they rather have that fear of anxiousness. They come out and exhibit that, and that becomes the elephant. The policy that is the rational mind is the man sitting on the elephant. However, the fear that we have, the anxiousness that we have with the recent introduction of AI within our projects and everything that we do, people tend to fear, have the anxiousness of loss of job. These are things that become rare to all of us that there's a need for us to embrace this change initiative. So as we go through this interaction, these change management principles will guide us. The question is why we need, as professionals within the HR fraternity and other professionals who are listening to us this evening, needs to also understand that there is a need for us to go through change. It is also understandable that half of companies change fails. The process they go through change, the steps they want to take to change issues, policies, they all fail, half of them. This is clear because we also see that change brings growth, it leads to fresh start. It can result in top performance and big shifts. However, we see all these things as issues that needs to be addressed. Scholars like the, the renowned Professor Emeritus John P. Cotter made this classical statement. And this is what John says. John is saying that effective change leadership transforms uncertainty into opportunity. And he continues to say that it's aligned vision with action to drive meaningful process. What John is bringing to our attention is all about the need for change, because without change, we are likely to limit our quest to be the ultimate. So change is bound to happen. And therefore, we professionals have to embrace it and then lead it right. Let's look at some of the stages that are very common in our journey through change. We change to survive. That is true. Basically, change leads to a big form of survival, of which companies have to go through these steps in change, and leaders should check where they are now and then plan for the next move. And for that matter, change will help us to survive. We also need to see change as a very need that every company have to go through or every organization have to go through with the reactions to problems. And after they happen, we need to be proactive to see change as a necessity. There's also a change for a fresh start, of which we need to set small goals. We need to break old habits and help ourselves as people who might have doubts of that nature. We also have to consider change to be of top results. We need to plan for these big shifts, and then we need to train staffs, use data for choice, and then build teams. All these are things that we need as professionals to make change work. We also want to consider that there's also the need for us in the change journey to consider full company shift. It is not one person within the organization that needs the change. From the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top, everyone has to go through that shift and make the change work. So basically, we are making a journey through change. There are some factors I want to also share to guide our conversation. Sorry. So with these factors, we also have to strongly appreciate that if we are going to make change initiatives work and as professionals to lead it, it is important to consider that there are these three factors that has to be emphasized. The people we deal with who are in the organization comes with traits. They have their own mindset, they have their skills, and therefore they need to be involved. And if you are looking at these people and consider their traits, we as a person have to, as professionals leading this change, have to consider the way we choose these skilled and motivated people to drive the process. If we assemble our change agent, we need to be circumspect in how to choose the people with the right mindset and the skills to help us make the change work. Apart from that, we can also consider the details of the change details. We need to also make it clear that everything has to be of the size of the change, the speed, and the impact we want the change to be. How do we envisage the change we want, and how fast do we need it, and what impact is it going to happen on our general work? Therefore, we need to clarify to the whole people we are dealing with, the organization. We need to also let them know why the change is needed and at the skill it has to take. We need to develop these ones by outlining what the future looks like and set better goals that is achievable. Finally, we have to also look at how to do it. Doing it is about trust, it's about communication, it's about leadership, and it's about involvement. When we say trust, we are looking at how to bring everyone on board, to have their buy-in, to understand why this change needs to work. And then for that matter, we need to also let leaders be the change models. We need to also set direction and coach others on how to do it. And these are things that will help bring success when we want to lead change. But just as I said, if change is inevitable, it means that there's always some kind of resistance that will happen. If you are considering the resistance that will happen, it is for us to understand how these organizational agents, people within our organization, will react. If you consider the Kubler-Ross change curve, it is clear that whenever change is announced, people have to come out of some form of resistance. The resistance is normal, and as HR professionals and people who are personnel oriented, we understand that when change is announced, the resistance will be normal. For that matter, we need to help these organizational employees, people we deal with, to adapt. They go through shock and denial. There is anger, there is bargaining, there is depression. Finally, we hope that there will be acceptance. Then, if we are going to help them or help ourselves go through this resistance process, we need to acknowledge the transition stages that people have to go through. And I've said that if there's a shock and denial, we need to help people because people move from endings, they go through some uncertainties before they reach their new beginnings. And for that matter, when we are recognizing these emotional reactions, what we need to do is that we have to make sure that employees who are feeling this shock, denial, the anger, the low energy they are going through, we have to do some kind of gradual experiment for them to accept and then integrate this change. How do we go through that as HR or as professionals within our space of work? If we are leading any change, what we need to do is that we need to listen with empathy. These are things that becomes the response to handle this resistance. We need to validate their feelings. Their feelings are right. If they are in shock and they are being denial, it is rightful for them to go through that. And if they are going through the bargaining process and depression, it is rightful. So we need to always have that kind of validation. We need to give them support and we celebrate the progress. The things that they're able to do going through the change, we need to also consider that. And many of them, we need to also show how this change connects to what the employees and the organizations care about. Organizational visions and missions comes to bear, and if the change is going to reflect well on these visions and missions, then it is the best for all of us. That is what we as professionals have to look at. And finally, let's look at the 9-step change cycle. If you are considering in making any change happen as professionals, I want to recommend to you the Scotland 9-step change cycle. This is hinged on John Cotter's 8-step model, and which has been revised with the Lean Sigma uh, model. And if you are making any change to happen, friends, it is important to appreciate that change will only happen when we start with an urgent case for the change. How do we start it? We need to be conscious of what we want to do. And then the idea has to be of necessity. And if this change is happening, it means that that should be the first thing we should be conducting. We should conduct a thorough analysis of the current state and identify areas for improvement. And if that need is well established, that means that an urgent case for change has been identified. Then we go on, once we have made the case known and the change to be done, then we need to get the buy-in of leadership. So we lead from the top. There is no change initiative that can be done within this 21st century among these Gen Z workers or employees that if leaders don't come in, it will work. So leaders have to champion the change. And that is what has to be done. If leadership champions the change, this initiative will work. We also have to understand that we need to develop the full vision for the change. Development of the change vision emphasize that leadership must set clear vision for the change. How will the processes and people work when the change has happened? If some kind of change is happening within their profession, we need to understand how it is going to affect the current job description. These visions has to be made clear. Then we need to communicate, communicate, and communicate. I emphasize it in 3 times because communication cannot be done in one line. We cannot just use official emails to go through it. However, every route that communication can be done. We can even consider doing some form of in-person conversations, conducting some workshops to orientate these workers. We need to do some kind of focus group kind of discussions. We can do email updates once in a while, and this will all help provide us with that kind of understanding. Going through communication, we need to also rethink our governance. Leadership have to come out clear to have a real look at how they go through monitoring, how they go through evaluations. We need to assemble all these things that we do, and that will help us. Rethinking the governance session help us to assemble our agents and then make things work. We need to celebrate our early wins, the winnings that we have now. The small celebrations has to be done till we get to the larger goal. We need to celebrate our early wins. Then we keep on keeping on. The vision has to be maintained. The vision has to be evaluated. The vision has to be some form of an adaptive process. We cannot just initiate it and leave it like that. We need to continue to pay attention to the impact of the change initiatives and then adapting as the situation needs. And that is looking at the way we keep on keeping on. And then finally, we have to reflect. How do we reflect? We reflect on our gains. We reflect on what we have done, because this organizational change is something rare. The perfect time to do it is what we have done. For that matter, we are reflecting on how the process has gone. Maybe the change does not happen in isolation. For that matter, we need to look over the project that we have done, the various shifts that needs to be done. And once we reflect, we are likely to refine, set better goals that are achievable, and then we move on. So basically, if we are on a conversation of leading change, then there's a need for us to look at all these things in totality. Wrapping up, I want to say that if we are leading change as professionals, we need to balance the mindset, the emotions, the workplace realities to overcome resistance and make transformation successful. We also have to consider that every effective change will definitely come. And when it comes, we need to make sure that the change aligns well with the HR success factors that I've shared with you, looking at the priorities of the people, their traits. We also have to consider that if we are going through this, we also have to apply these steps that I have shared. And then we have to put people at the center. The most important thing is that if we have won the trust of the people, communication is well done, coaching and involvement is well articulated and well planned, there is no way change will have that strong resistance. Thank you for your listening time, and I'm hoping that we can continue the conversation from here. Evelyn, over to you.
We've had, and personally have learned a lot from this conversation. Thank you so much. Please, ladies and gentlemen, you can still drop in your name, your location, and wherever you're watching from. If you have any question for us, Pastor Bobe is here to answer the questions. But we would go for a quick commercial break, and then when we are back, I have some few questions for Pastor Bobe, then we'll continue from there. Thank you. This is still your HR Digest brought to you by HR Consult, your HR partner. Thank you.
We are so excited to have you join us. SEDAT HR Conference is going to be a transformative experience. We'll have various speakers who will be sharing on various topics to ensure that we bridge the gap, creating a workplace where everyone feels heard, valued, and supported. See you at the conference hall.
Okay, hello, welcome back, everyone. So as the just advertisement of the HR conference just ended, I would like to remember all of us to register for the HR conference, which is happening in Kumasi, the Kumasi Edition. We have HR minds, business executives, and industry experts who are gathering to unpack one crucial question. They say that how can HR align strategy with business success for sustainable growth? This is a conference you don't want to miss. Kindly register. You can follow us on all our social medias. The links are there for you to register. Thank you so much. So, Pastor Broby, hello, please, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please, I can hear you. Thank you for that insightful conversation you had with us. We really learned a lot. People,
That's
it's not
okay.
too late to still drop in your comments, your question, and we would acknowledge that. So you mentioned that change is inevitable. Please, I'd like to know how can you gradually introduce change to your employees as a leader?
Thank you very much for the question. We have come to appreciate that change is basically inevitable because we are humans and we live in a society that runs through that process of change. If you
Okay.
come to the human development as a scientist, I just appreciate that we were born young and now we are here. So
Yes.
it becomes important for us to appreciate that there will surely be change. How then do we approach the change management cycle? It means that we need to start small. There is
Okay.
no there's no need for you to set out any change in a drift. It has to take a slow process so as to not face that kind of resistance that cannot be overcome, because you need the buy-in of everyone within the scope of the change. If the people within the sphere that you are making the change do not buy in into whatever change you want to bring, and that will come out with dialogue, that will come out with you engaging, because the engagement you make with them, then they will be able to accept the change. So if you
Okay.
ask me, change will come because it's
Yes.
inevitable. And if we want to make the change initiative work, we need to practice the slow pace of change, making sure that the people we are working with, the people we are leading, buy into the idea, the visions we want to bring up. Make it clear, simple. You will
Okay.
win them, and then change will
Okay.
happen. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. So I would like to also find out what role does leadership play in communicating this change to the people? Are there practical ways of doing it? I know you mentioned about maybe having a one-on-one meeting or so, and then maybe through emails or so, but what are some of the other practical ways we can as leaders to lead these changes to the employees?
Yes, so just as I reiterated, and I want to make it clear, we understand that communication is key in every endeavor of human life. And for that
Right.
matter, if leadership is making any kind of change, we need to accept and emphasize that there are various channels of which change can be communicated or can be handed down. We don't have to choose what is comfortable to us as
Okay.
leaders. We need to choose what the people we are dealing with accept. Someone will not be comfortable with just an email being sent. However, if you call them to the office and then explain to them, that is why it is important for us as professionals to learn that kind of people-centered practice. The
Practice.
people
Yeah.
we are dealing with should be the ones that are the ultimate. Because if I have the vision, I have the opportunity that this is what I want to do, and I want to initiate it because I am the leader today. If the people I am dealing with are not well communicated using different channels, the channels are there. You can use the workshop I made about the focus group.
Yeah.
I spoke about. You can go to the extent of calling in experts to speak out what you should have spoken, which will help all the people within your space to appreciate the change. So communication has different channels. Choose the one that are comfortable, favorable with the people you are dealing with. And
Okay.
I can trust change can be made. Thank you.
Thank you. So, follow up to this question, to this what you just spoke about. What if the company is a very large, like it has lots of people in the company? How do
Yeah.
you handle different channel of communication to them? Maybe somebody wants a workshop, someone wants a one-on-one, someone different, as you mentioned, different emotions and feelings regarding the changes. So, as an HR expertise, how do you combine all this and handle and meet everybody's needs with regards to change?
Yes, so you understand that in large companies and large organizations, there are some supervisory kind of uh, level of
Okay, like line managers.
line managers and the rest, and we understand the organogram and the way things works. So
Okay.
if the idea is from the CEO, the CEO has to get the buy-in of the next person in the line, and then from that next person, that communication channels works down to the last person at the bottom of the organogram. That is how it has to be done. You cannot
Okay.
just sit at the top and shout over us or talk over us the idea. We might not get it, but if you're able to convince your immediate administrator, and that administrator gets it and then breaks it down to the first line manager, the first line manager to the second line manager, we the casual workers within the organization can also accept it. So what I'm trying to bring along is that it is not just looking at it from your point of view that I'm the CEO, I have sent a newsletter that explains what we have to do in the next quarter. And if the newsletter has been published, it means that the idea has been sold out. No. If you do that, you might lose out the kind of people that needs to be in the loop, because some people with that skill and expertise that you need might not agree, might not have that kind of idea. You see, change affects so many things. It can affect
Yes.
your job description. I was looking at a typical example of how just the introduction of ATM is affecting the banking official. So if
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
an ATM and now my work as a bank teller is not well tailored out, because the person I'm waiting to serve will take the money at the gate, at the entrance of the bank. These are things that are just typical examples of issues that happens within our society. So again, we working in a larger institution should sell the message of change through our line of work. the organogram, and then it will get down to the person at the bottom of the organogram. Thank you.
Okay, thank you too. Wow, thank you so much. So talking about handling resistance, some people in quote they call them MBA. In our local language it means mebahache, which they are used to certain ways of doing things. And now IA is being introduced, technology is coming in. How do you handle such a resistance that they know that this is what they are used to, and you are telling them for them to use maybe Zoom for a meeting? We are not coming together physically to have a meeting, but now we are having these meetings on Zoom or on Teams. How do you introduce the technology into these people who think they have been there for so long and they are used to the
Hmm.
things that they know?
Uh, is a clear cut that change within this kind of technological uh, episode of our life is difficult to introduce. And just
Yes.
as I shared with you the Kubler-Ross change curve,
Mhm,
uh,
mhm.
people definitely will go through shock. Well, when COVID-19 steps into our world, we we all were shocked. Why am I not able to go to work again? Now we need to work from home. Some come in Monday, some come in Tuesday, the rest. So the shock will be there. Some people will
Yeah.
go through the anger process, they will bargain about it. Some even went through depression within the COVID season. But however, we have to accept it. For example, this kind of discussion should have been done in a conference room, but I'm in my
Mhm.
home, you are in your home, and we are doing this.
Yes.
How
Yes.
then have we accepted? We have accepted because this is the best way to go. So if
Right.
we want to introduce it, first we need to make sure that we bring the attention of the people. We have to help them move through the process of the change. How are they moving through? Because they are always having that form of moving from endings and going through some form of uncertainties. However, they will reach their new beginnings. Then we need
Mm.
to recognize that these emotional reactions they might be going through, these employees, when they feel these emotional reactions, as HRs and as professionals, what I will recommend is that we should always listen with empathy.
Yes.
Listen to whatever the person is sharing with you. Because if that change you are making does not suit well with them, they will complain. They will come with excuses.
Mm-hmm.
Professionals like us, we should listen. When we listen to, I also want to reiterate that we should validate their feelings. We shouldn't just throw it out that, oh, you want to be the odd one out. No, they are going through a lot of emotional process which they have to be helped. And so if you are
Yes.
validating it, then give them the support.
Mm-hmm.
Some people were born before this introductory things of computing and the rest. So if you
Yeah.
have a line manager who is over 50, getting to the 60s, and even within the 40s, some people have challenge going through some of these processes. So
That's
we
true.
need to support them. If there's a need for you to send a technical person to them to help them set up some of these technological things that you envision to introduce, help them go through that. And apart
Mm.
from that, celebrate their process,
Yeah.
their progress, and their achievement. Help them to be comfortable that, oh, it's good you're able to come on live. You've done well. Acknowledge the effort they are making. Don't downplay whatever
Mm-hmm.
they are doing. And I think
Mm.
each response can help achieve the change we want.
Yeah.
That's okay. Thank you.
That's very true. Thank you too. So, Mr. Pastor, I would like to put you on the spot a little. Since you are also a leader yourself and an HR professional, have you had any practical example of how you led a change? How did it turn out to be? Was it good? Was it bad? How did they receive it? This topic is so intriguing. I would like to know if you have any practical example to share with us.
So as an educator,
Mm.
I have seen a lot with this kind of change.
Mhm.
In in the in the time of this COVID-19 process coming through, we
Yeah.
we had a chance that our students that we were educating should be sent home, and then for that matter, once they go home, we as leaders or we as educators should engage them on the online kind of platforms. And
Right.
initiating this, being part of the team that has to introduce this, we had educators who were not on that thing. Some complained that these students are in their homes. How are we going to engage them? And if I'm not seeing them and I'm talking, how then do I know that they are even listening? How are they going to accept it? And I can tell you that within that period, it was difficult. However,
Yes.
the consensus building and the talk over was all done. And I can also testify that by the time these students came back, we had made progress. At least
Mm,
we were able to engage them for some period before the reopening of schools came in. And
okay.
recently, we have also gone through some form of renovations and the rest within the education system, even curriculum change. We have done
Yeah.
a few of them, and of which these ones also come with some form of challenge. So typically, as an educationist, I have seen it all that changing people from their old to their new, you need to make sure that you trek with caution and then always be able to guide people through. And that's a
Yes.
typical thing we have been doing over the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Being a student myself, I can totally relate to this example because after COVID now, most of our lectures are done online. And it hasn't been easy. Since level 400, we are still screaming, mute your mics, mute your mics. People still don't know how to navigate the tools on the various links that we use for studies. So I could totally relate. But as you said, gradually we are getting used to the fact that now online studies has come to stay. So no
Yes.
matter what, we will still continue. Wow, thank you so much. So
You're
in
welcome.
wrapping up, my last question is what advice would you give, one piece of advice to someone who is leading change for the very first time? Maybe they've now been employed to be a manager somewhere and there's a major change that is coming up. What advice would you give such a person that they won't get overwhelmed in the process?
So what I will tell the new leader who wants to make a change is that if you are looking at change, consider that change does not happen in isolation.
Mm,
And when I say change does not happen in isolation, I mean that you have to make the change, and then you need people to make that change. And so the most important people you need are the people who are the change agents. And these
okay.
change agents are the skilled personnel you have within your organization. There is
Right.
no need for you to take out people. You need all hands on deck. So it means that whatever approach you use in your communications, whatever approach you use in making sure that you buy in all people on board, that is what you need to do. As a leader, there is no way to be selective because the people you might take them out might be the people that will come out with the best criticism
Yes.
to your
Mm-hmm.
vision, to sharpen the vision for you. So everyone should be brought on board. No discrimination, nothing of that sort. And I believe that when the change is well settled, people will love it, people will agree with it, and then your leadership will be a model to be followed. So that is what I will tell the new leader. Thank you.
Thank you too. Hello, everyone. This has been a very insightful session we've had. We've explored. I believe it is something we can reflect on. We can think about it and later on even ask certain questions when we still don't understand it. But my takeaway from this session is the cobbler's rose change scale. I'm surprised people could be to get could get depressed in the season of change. knowing very well that change is constant, it is inevitable, and it can happen anytime. So this shows that people really attach their emotions to whatever it is that they are doing. And I'm happy you said that as a leader, we should listen with empathy, validate their feelings, and then give them support and celebrate their progress as well. At least they will know that there's somebody who is willing to listen to them and do what they also want, and I mean everybody would be happy. Thank you so much, Pastor Probe. Personally, I've learned a lot, and I believe our listeners and those who joined us too have also learned a lot. We are so grateful. I'm so grateful. And thank you for sharing your knowledge and your expertise, the practical example. It's very relatable, which I know that everybody can relate to it and understand. And to our audience, we thank you for participation. We thank you for the engagement and everything. So as we step away, I'd like to talk about our HR conference that is about to happen in Kumasi. And HR in Kumasi is about to take center stage on Thursday, 30th October 2025. The SEDAT HR Conference, Kumasi Edition, will gather leading HR minds, business executives, and industry experts to unpack one crucial question. There is one crucial question that we all need to find out the answer. It is, how can HR align strategy with business success for sustainable growth? Seats are limited and the conversations will be invaluable. Please register. Go on our various platforms, on our social media platform, and register. There is one question from someone. He said, the name didn't come, but he said, Pastor, can you please talk about the conference per your experience? Okay, please, did you get that? Are you aware of the conference?
Yes, so
Okay.
privileged. I were part of the Takrade one, and it was splendid. And I think
Okay.
the Kumasi one is going to every conference of SEDAT Consult has been a best experience. And
Yeah.
I believe if someone was with the March conference we did in Takrade, it was splendid. My takeout was how Kwame Afre was able to utilize our on-site ideas to speak to us. It was very splendid. We have to
Okay.
use some kind of data collection within the conference, and you notice that we come with a lot of ideas. And so this conference, you are likely to meet the best brains within the industry you are in. And so everyone is invited, and we will all be
Okay.
there October
Yes.
to join the Kumasi team to make it happen. So
Okay.
if you are listening, you are invited. Be part of this movement, and we will make change happen. Thank you.
Right. I hope you heard that. Be part of this moment and we'll make change right. Thank you so much, Pastor Brobe. We are so grateful for your time and all that you've shared with us. Okay, so everyone, on that note, we're about to end the program. I believe you've learned a lot. I believe you have your takeaways, and the platforms are still here. You can always share your thoughts. You can always share any questions that you have. I believe we'll pick it up from there and answer all your questions. So I wish you all a great week ahead, and thank you for joining us. Pastor Bobe, thank you once again, and
You are
see you
welcome.
another time.
That's right.
Bye.
See you.
Bye,
Bye bye.
everyone. Bye.
We are so excited to have you join us. SEDAT HR Conference is going to be a transformative experience. We'll have various speakers who will be sharing on various topics to ensure that we bridge the gap, creating a workplace where everyone feels heard, valued, and supported. See you at the conference hall. Thank you.